Thanks for that introduction, Chylin. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone tonight. If you have questions that come in, please feel free to jump in and talk to me about it during the presentation tonight. Chylin, if something comes in the chat and it's timely and I don't see it, just let me know, because I have all my screens up and I might not see that chat as it happens. Okay. So everyone, yep, thanks for inviting me, Friends of Nevada Wilderness, to give this presentation today. My name is Ashley Pipkin and I work for the National Park Service, and I work in a division called the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division. So we protect natural soundscapes and pristine night skies in our division. And I also coordinate the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative, which I'll talk a little bit about today. The Basin Range Dark Sky Cooperative works with Friends of Nevada Wilderness, and we also have Kirk come to a lot of our meetings too. So we invite as much participation from all of you too. So check us out. All right, let's start the presentation. Because I am a National Park Service employee, I always like to start these conversations off by talking about what our mission is. I think most employees that work for the National Park Service are really fortunate and really inspired by our mission. So I just want to read this out, that the National Park Service preserves unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. And what could really be more inspirational than looking up into the night sky and seeing our very own galaxy and millions of, objects that are millions of light years away. Many parks interpret the night sky and have night sky programs and night sky rangers and telescopes to help visitors really see some of the stars that they may not have familiarity with in their own backyards. And there's always really a reason to look up at the night sky, whether there's a comet, whether there's constellations, whether, you saw Kurt in that video talk about Jupiter or being able to see Saturn's rings. There's always something amazing to look up at the night sky and see, especially in Nevada, where there's hardly ever any clouds in the night sky. In the NPS, we care about that inspiration, visitor enjoyment, but we also care about cultural connections. And when you lose access to the night sky, you lose access to some of those connections. Many park resources have programming during the day and the nighttime to provide opportunities to connect with the cultural landscape during both periods. I think some of us are familiar with the Nevada Star Train that goes out of Ely. So that's a historic railway that goes out of Ely and brings visitors to Great Basin National Park to enjoy and celebrate that night sky that is so pristine and amazing in that part of our state. We're really tied to the landscape of the past. When we look up at the starry night, this is the same night sky that people have seen for thousands and thousands of years and looked at. And after we lose access to that night sky, we kind of lose access to the richness of the stories that people have been telling about that night sky for thousands of years. Since I'm talking to the Friends of Nevada Wilderness today, I wanted to also talk about wilderness character and how important the night sky is to wilderness character. You might be familiar with some of the wilderness characteristics that all federal land, not just National Park Service, gets judged by. So whenever you go into a wilderness area, you look at wilderness characteristics like the natural characteristics, the untrammeled, undeveloped, opportunities for solitude, and then there's another category called other features and values. And whether this is National Park Service wilderness, BLM wilderness, Forest Service, all of this wilderness gets looked at and has the same characteristics that they are evaluated. And I would say that the night sky experience most closely relates to the outstanding opportunity for solitude But the nocturnal environment and how it functions most closely relates to the natural characteristic of wilderness, which considers a natural environment one that's an ecological system that's substantially free from the effects of modern civilization. This natural characteristic is important because, of course, for millennia, the Earth has moved through these really predictable patterns of light and dark. These daily cycles, monthly cycles, and annual patterns dictate life on our planet. And while these patterns vary spatially, every place on the planet spends half of its year in daylight and half of its year in relative darkness. And all the creatures that have evolved to live in these ecosystems have evolved to live with this darkness. And a great example that many of you might have seen before is this deciduous tree. It knows to drop its leaves when the winter nights become longer, so the days become shorter. And when artificial light is introduced into the environment, let me get my laser pointer so you can see the lamp. It is the light is throwing off these natural cues for this tree. So it will not drop its leaves, as you're seeing, and then those leaves could be weighed down with frost, and eventually that could cause negative impacts to that tree. In addition to the natural cycle of day and night, there's a natural cycle at nighttime too, with the moon phases. And there are, different moon phases that provide various levels of illumination. I think tonight we will not have a moon in the sky until about midnight if you're in if you're in Nevada. And when that moon rises, I think it's a waning gibbous tonight, and it will bring fairly bright conditions. And before artificial light, this was the main source of illumination at nighttime. For anyone who has ever watched the moon rise from a dark sky, it is like an incredibly bright blast of light onto the landscape. So I talked about the amazing visitor experience, the cultural connection to the night sky, but the National Park Service also has this primary responsibility to protect natural resources. And this can be a talk all by itself. I could talk for a few hours about the ecological impacts of artificial light at night. But just briefly, I want to share that, we estimate that 62% of species are nocturnal. And all life, whether you're nocturnal or if you're awake mostly at daytime, like humans are, all of us depend on natural day and night cycles. But nocturnal wildlife are especially impacted by changes in their environment. The most common example of this, of course, is sea turtles. We've heard a lot of this. So sea turtles used to be able to navigate to the ocean, which was the brightest part of the landscape. But we can see that starting to change as street lights get introduced to the shore. And instead of a sea turtle being hatched on the beach and going to the ocean, it will head towards street lights instead. So that's kind of the most famous example. But a more relevant local example is the Joshua tree, which has one pollinator, the yucca moth. Traditionally, we're all familiar with seeing, insects underneath or attracted to our porch lights at nighttime. So we know that moths and many insects are nocturnal and they're attracted to light at night. One of the, critical species of the Mojave Desert is the Joshua tree, and it has one pollinator, and that pollinator is nocturnal. And as we start to see populations of insects decline, which we've seen. There's been a lot of research out lately discussing how insect populations are decreasing. We can expect to see pollination of the plants that rely on them. We can expect to see pollination go down and recruitment of prized vegetation types and communities and species like the Joshua tree. We might expect those to decline as well. Of course, the biggest threat to all of this is light pollution. And light pollution comes in a few different forms that I just want to consider and talk about today. One thing that we often think of when we think about light pollution is just, the single source of light. Everybody knows about the Luxor Casino and wants to blame the Luxor Casino, which is one of the biggest sources of light pollution. A huge bright light shining directly into the night sky. You can see all the birds, insects, and bats attracted to this light, trapped in this light. But it can also be our really bright porch lights at night. If you're in an incredibly dark environment, this can be the brightest part of the landscape, the single point source of light. But generally, a bigger issue, especially for protected areas and wilderness areas that aren't allowed to have lights within their boundaries in wilderness areas, is sky glow. So sky glow is composed of, yes, it's composed of businesses, it's composed of individual households, but most of what makes up sky glow is city lights and street lighting. And we can see that here. I'll talk about sky glow in the next slide. So this is a famous paper now. It came out in 2001, but we can see how the United States has changed in brightness. So we have a few dark areas out here in the West, and we have these very small areas that are bright. And this is in the late 1950s. So we see like the Mid-Atlantic, the Rust Belt, all pretty bright locations. By the time we get to the 70s, the West is still pretty dark, but we have this area kind of east of the eastern United States that's just getting brighter and brighter. By the time we get to 1997, that sky glow is continuing to increase. And sky glow, by the time we get to 2025, these are projections, covers most of the United States, and there's very few dark places left in the US. We can see this part of Nevada is one of them. And this is occurring on a global scale, so just not the United States. And looking at images of the nighttime, you can see, great inequities in light. The United States has a ton of artificial light. So does Europe. You can see the actual boundary of India with the rest of Asia here. And other less developed places have a lot less light. So in the National Park Service, we measure the impact to the night skies and try to understand what's happening in our parks and protected areas. So we have this camera. This is a close-up picture of the camera. It's attached to a telescope arm. And so what it does is it takes a bunch of images here, a bunch of images here, and it goes all the way up through the sky. So when Kirk was talking earlier about how, I will climb up to a mountain to collect images. So I'll bring this, sometimes I have to walk out and bring this whole entire camera system. I can't do it in one trip, so I have to take 2 trips and bring this up on a mountaintop. Or if I'm lucky, I can just take it right out of my car and be close to a road and collect that data. But sometimes it's not always easy to collect. So whenever I take that camera out, I get an image like this. And to explain this image, this is a 360-degree view. So you can see my car is over here. This wasn't far from a road, so you can see the road there. And then you can see there's a radio tower right here. And this is a false color image at Lake Mead National Recreation Area. So you can see here, this is the light dome of Las Vegas. And you can see this is Bullhead and Laughlin, and this is Kingman. And this is in Lake Mead National Recreation Area down Cottonwood Cove Road, and it's near Nellis Wash Wilderness. There's a ton of metrics you can get from this measurement, but one of the more valuable metrics that you get is the Sky Quality Index. And this is a 65.9 out of 100. So what this tells us is that about 34% of the night sky is degraded from light pollution. And that light pollution is coming from these 3 light domes that I discussed. we can zoom in on those images and we can look at light pollution over, and this one is not false color, this is true color. We can look at light pollution in a specific frame of the picture, and we can look up sky glow. So this is Las Vegas. And so this image was taken in 2011, and I went right as the pandemic was really kicking it into high gear. The Las Vegas Strip was closed down. You can see that actually there's not a very substantial change in the overall sky glow. So, this is just a reminder that a lot of the light pollution that we see is not necessarily coming from businesses or households. A lot of it's coming from the municipal street lighting that we see in our communities. And of course, the single point source of light that remains is the Luxor Casino. You can see that light shining into the night sky this is approximately 60 miles away as the crow flies. So we can also see sky glow, and we can see this extreme example of the Luxor Casino. This is a map of wilderness areas, Southern Nevada and California. You can see the purple ones are owned by the NPS, and this is where I took that picture of Nellis Wash Wilderness. And all the way from here, you can still see the Luxor. But more importantly, all of these places can see the sky glow from Las Vegas. So not only are they impacted by the single point source, but they're impacted by sky glow in general. The green is National Forest Wilderness, yellow is BLM, and purple is NPS. So if you look at this area, a satellite image of this area, you can see Las Vegas, this bright area in Las Vegas. You can see Southern California, Phoenix. But if we look at that area, the Nellis Wash Wilderness area, we don't really see any sky glow. Because these images tell us upward radiance. So if we were, in the sky, this is the light that's impacting us. But we all know that we are earthlings navigating the landscape, and we care about what the landscape looks like. We don't just care what the conditions, how much light is escaping into space. So what we'll do is we'll collect those images and we'll create a sky glow model. So you remember right here, that's where Nellis Wash Wilderness is. I'm going to take you to this section. So we're going to get a little bit closer to this Las Vegas Light Dome. And then I'm going to take you to Death Valley right about here. So we'll be a little bit further away from this light dome, and we'll see how those images change. So closer to the Las Vegas Light Dome in Lake Mead National Recreation Area in Government Wash, you can see the night skies basically totally washed out. Over 75% of the night sky is degraded by light pollution. And here in Death Valley National Park, which is still substantially far away from light pollution, you can see it's much better. Only about 8% of the night sky is degraded by light pollution, but you can still see Las Vegas, and that's Las Vegas and Pahrump from this angle actually. And then this is Southern California over here. But a really beautiful Milky Way, really beautiful landscape here. You can see some lights over here from people. You can see them, they're really, really small. So what we do with those images and satellite imagery is create modeled all sky impact. So that was that other location. I forgot to put a star over here by Nellis Wash, but that was Nellis Wash, that first image that I showed you, and that was Death Valley. So although we didn't see any lights from those satellite images, we can model what the impacts are across large landscape levels. So that was, oops, skipping ahead. So that was a little bit about how we measure night skies and how we understand the impacts to nocturnal environments. But I just want to get back to why it's so important to protect these places. In thinking about those wilderness characteristics that I was talking about, the outstanding opportunities for solitude and primitive and unconfined recreation, and the natural quality of wilderness as well. And you can see as you look out into this landscape that you might feel both of those wilderness characteristics are abundant in these locations. But if you went back to that landscape at night, you can see that it would be dramatically different. It would feel dramatically different. And these wilderness characteristics are really just as valuable at nighttime as they are in daytime. So in the National Park Service, this is a relatively dark area. This is in Big Bend. We can do things like retrofit lights to make them more night sky friendly. So here you can see the, it's probably a little easier in this image. You can see this light shines brightly onto this mountain range behind here. And then when we go to this darker night sky friendly lighting, we can see that none of that light shines out into the landscape. You can still see it. And this is a longer exposure image. These images, I think both had 13-second exposures. So they are equivalent to each other. But the amount of lighting goes down significantly. But this is a single point source of light, right? We can make these significant changes within our own park, but we need to think about sky glow too and what we can do to improve that. Oops, keep moving ahead. All right. And we have to think about sky glow because this is what the United States looks like today. So sky glow is creeping into all of our backyards. It's becoming more and more abundant, and there's fewer and fewer places to find a natural night sky. I want to draw your attention to this part. So this is, I think about right here is where Massacre Rim is, in this kind of dark area right here. But this is where like Basin and Range National Monument and Great Basin is. So this area is one of the darkest places left in the lower 48. You can see Las Vegas here, that's Reno over here. And this boundary in this image represents the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative. The Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative was started as a way to work across a landscape scale. The landscape scale is so valuable because, you know, my light impacts my neighbors. Las Vegas, lights from Las Vegas can impact Death Valley. And as Kurt mentioned, lights from Reno can impact Massacre Rim. So it's really important to engage with communities. We talk to nonprofits like Friends of Nevada Wilderness. We communicate with our state land partners, city lands, federal public lands, tribes, universities, and astronomical organizations. And you can, we're in all the usual places. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and we have, we're on YouTube as well. And you can find us on our website, brdarkskies.org. I'll share that at the end of the presentation. And we all know that working across the landscape scale is important because working with the communities is really essential to preserving the night sky. I feel like I'm always picking on Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is in this image, and then this image is Flagstaff, Arizona, but it's because one of my offices is close to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I'm close to Flagstaff. So these are two different cities, Cheyenne and Flagstaff. They have about the same population. You can go on the US Census and find out their population. It's relatively, I think Flagstaff has about 5,000 or 6,000 more people the last time I checked. But you can see that there's a big difference in how these communities use lighting. And it makes a big difference on their footprint and how much sky glow they spill out into the environment. So these are the images that we collected. They are equidistant from both Cheyenne and Flagstaff. And you can see that there's a significant difference between sky glow in these two cities. The difference is that Flagstaff has a lot of community support for night skies. I think they have like a dark sky brewing company and dark sky coffee. And there's a lot of support for night skies, and there's a lighting ordinance in place in the community. So what that lighting ordinance does is it doesn't say that businesses have to change their lights. It just encourages businesses and individuals to change their lights, but what it mainly does is make sure that all the municipal and city-owned lighting is night sky friendly. And that goes a long way into improving the night sky in, two cities. And you can see the big difference here. So if you're wondering what night sky friendly lighting is, I'm going to go over that pretty briefly. The tenets of night sky friendly lighting are that they have to be useful. So this is an example of a roadway. This is kind of a cool example in the Netherlands. These lights, they don't have big, lights over their highways. These lights only turn on when a car is on the highway, and are not on when cars and traffic are not on this highway. So I think that's a really cool example. So that light is really useful. These lights, not as useful, right? This is an empty roadway. These lights are incredibly bright. Maybe you don't need this many lights along this it looks like a very suburban roadway. So this is not a good use of light. This example over here shows lights on a stairwell. That's incredibly important. If you're navigating a landscape at nighttime and people are there and there's stairs, they need to be able to see those stairs. That's a really useful light. This light is one of my, I struggle with these lights that shine directly, landscape lighting that shines directly in the sky, lighting up the night sky, and also lighting up trees that, wildlife could use as habitat during the daytime, obviously, but are completely made useless by the fact that there's incredibly bright lights here that would disturb any nocturnal wildlife passing through the area. Light should be targeted, so it should be useful and targeted. This is a sports field, which sports fields are notoriously, the enemy of some, folks that are interested in night skies and care about night sky protection, but sports field can be lit responsibly. This is lights that are all shining directly on the sports field and not impacting the area around the sports field. These lights here are shining on the doorways so that people can get into their rooms, and shining on the stairs, but not shining on the mountain behind it. So these are lights that are not targeted. And in addition to not being targeted, they're incredibly bright. So low light levels, useful and targeted. This light here is shining onto this building. It's probably made primarily for this road. It shouldn't be shining into these windows. This light is incredibly bright, shining onto this house. It's probably made for this parking lot. It's reaching all the way to this other roadway. And there are ways that you can reduce the brightness of these lights and shield them to make them more night sky friendly. Aftermarket things like dimulators can be purchased on street lighting that your municipality or community has already purchased. Light should be controlled. Even Homer Simpson, who is not the brightest bulb, knows that light functions in both on and off mode. Just because a light is there does not mean that it always needs to be on. So a control can be as simple as a switch, but if you use that switch to turn your light on and off, then you should consider using motion sensors or timers so that lights aren't on in your park at 4 in the morning, right? Sometimes people are concerned about safety, so they leave a porch light on all night. And I would suggest leaving a porch light on a motion sensor so that if someone does come to your doorstep, that light turns on and you know someone is there. The next one of the most important ways to make your lighting night sky friendly is to use warmer color lights when possible. So this is a warmer color light. This is a cooler colored light over here. And warmer color lights are more night sky friendly because they're better for wildlife, and they're also better for humans as well. There's a lot more glare that comes with these bright white lights. And you can see this is a kind of a chart of color temperature. Nobody would get a 7,000 K light. That's incredibly bright. But these 4,000 K lights, and K stands for Kelvin, that's color temperature. And you'll see if you buy a light bulb at Home Depot, they'll say 4,000 K CCT, color coordinated temperature. But that's a lot bluer than these lights right here are 4,000 K, and these lights are 2,200 K. This light you can see is 2,800 K. So the lower the number, the better. And a few years ago, the American Medical Association adopted guidance to reduce harm from high intensity street lights. And they suggested that lights be below 3,000 K. At this point, the International Dark Sky Association suggests that lights should be around 2,200 K, unless you're using light for a specific reason, like a sports field. That light might need to be a little bit cooler, but for street lighting, porch lighting, you would want like a warmer glow, a warmer color. The best thing about this is that following night sky friendly lighting practices gets you immediate results. This is a picture, it's kind of a well-known picture. It was a blackout, I think in Southern California, or brownout in Southern California. And as soon as the lights go out, you get incredible night skies. It's pretty great. It's not like water pollution or air pollution where it can take decades to clean up. As soon as you turn off the lights or use more night sky friendly lighting, you can get immediate access to the nocturnal environment, to the night sky that you didn't have right before you turn that light out. So in summary, if you're buying lights for your house, if your community or city is buying lights, don't just buy a light off the shelf. Don't buy the first light that they try to sell to you. Make sure that that light is shielded, so it's useful, it's targeted, it's going where it's supposed to go. Make sure that that light has a warmer color temperature, so it's easier on the eyes, it causes less glare. Make sure that that light is not the light from the Luxor casino, make sure that it's a low intensity light. We don't need the brightest light possible. We can use lower intensity lights that also save energy. And also put your lighting on a motion sensor or a timer. The best light is no light. The second best light is a light that's not on when no one is using it. If it's useful, we need light. That makes sense. But if it's not, if no one is using it, try to figure out ways to minimize that light and turn that light off, either through timers or motion sensors. So in summary, night skies are really, really important. They're important for our well-being. They're important for the functioning of the ecosystem. And we've evolved with these natural day and night cycles. Light pollution is increasing and it's changing our own lights. That's really, really important. But working with our communities to encourage the use of night sky friendly lighting is really going to be essential to these landscape scale improvements. And most of all, I encourage everyone to look up at the night sky and really appreciate the resource and the special thing that we have here in Nevada. And, you know, as much as you can, take actions to protect that resource and keep it pristine for us and for future generations as well. So that concludes my talk and what I wanted to to discuss with everyone today. I am happy to take questions. I'm happy to send you guys all to brdarkskies.org to learn more about the Basin and Range Dark Sky Cooperative, or you can go to our website in NPS. You can just Google National Park Service Night Skies and it'll take you to our website there. Okay, I think I can stop sharing my screen. See if anybody has any questions. Oh,
no,
wait.
yeah, I would say keep it up for a little bit just so everybody can write down the information.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Cool.
I will share it again then.
Thank you.
There you go. And if anybody, I guess I'll keep it up if anybody has any specific questions that they want to see my slides or anything.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can type that into the chat. If you are on Zoom, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and interject if you have a question. I see Kurt says it looked like Greg chimed in, but I'll just say it out loud so people on Facebook and everyone else can see it as well. Kurt said, what inspired Flagstaff to address dark skies?
I think the Flagstaff, I might have been the first community in the world to get the certification, the International Dark Sky certification for that community. And Flagstaff has had a history of, night sky advocates. There's a few observatories in Flagstaff, so that definitely helps encourage the community to protect its night skies because those observatories are there. And they could see the problem mounting. And I think once they started to realize what a special resource they had and started to protect that night sky resource, that the community just got more and more excited about it. So, you see some pride in Flagstaff for their special dark skies, like, with the Dark Sky Brewing Company, and come to Flagstaff to see dark skies. And so there's a lot of positive things that have come out of both economically and, just protecting the resources. A lot of positives that have come from Flagstaff doing that. Yeah. And good for the observatories too.
Yeah. And that's basically what Greg chimed in with in the chat. So you got a couple of thank yous from Hermie and also Andrea.
Oh, great. Happy to talk.
And then Kurt Lewis asking, are you guys working with Reno, Washoe, Vegas, Clark to deal with light pollution since that does affect wilderness? So
yeah, so
for Kurt.
Oh, it's a question for Kurt.
I'll let you follow up if
no, it's a yeah.
Well, I mean, part of what we're doing is really supporting and advocating for SB 52, which is to bring awareness of dark skies to the rest of Nevada and to pretty much get communities looking forward to gaining that certification as being dark sky friendly. That's about what we're doing. We have to be very careful with our organization because we have to stay within our wheelhouse, which is wilderness. And yes, dark sky does affect light pollution, and light domes do affect wilderness areas. But saying that, we have some very narrow missions that we have to follow.
Right. So. Indeed. And Ashley, is there anything NPS?
Yeah, so a big part of what we do is outreach and talking about night skies and what we can do to better protect them. And the there's the astronomical organizations. Greg's a member of the Las Vegas Astronomical Society, and the Astronomical Society in Reno also interfaces with the cooperative. But one of the big things that I try to do in my role is there's a lighting community called the Illuminating Engineering Society, and there's a chapter in Las Vegas. So these are lighting professionals. These are the folks that, sell lights to people in Clark County and Reno and all of the communities. So I have given presentations and talked to those groups about ways that we can start to think about night sky friendly lighting. You know, cracking the, it is hard to work with communities in that you don't live in. So I live in a small community in Boulder City, and I can do that as a citizen. So as a citizen, I'm interested in working with my community to try to install more night sky friendly lighting. But if any of you live in Clark County, live in Las Vegas, I encourage you to talk to your city council or talk to members in your community, your neighbors, about what you can do to improve lighting. If you live in that community, that's within your wheelhouse and within your rights to do that.
Definitely. I see hand up, Greg McKay. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Ashley. She knows me from the Las Vegas Astronomical Society. I'm the former president and still a very active member of it. And great presentation. I know a lot of people don't understand light temperatures and everything. And as a astrophotographer myself, it's been the advent of all of these LED lighting has actually been really, really horrible for the hobby. I know it's good for the environment, but the problem is there's such broad spectrum lights that you can't filter it out. In the old days, in the 80s or 90s, if you wanted to take an astrophoto, you could put a filter on that blocked out the sodium vapor light because that was the primary spectrum of light. But now with these LED lights being broad spectrum the way they are, there's no way to filter it out because it covers, pretty much the entire spectrum. So going with the cooler temperature lights does help some, but even still, even the cooler temperatures, they're easier on the eyes, but as far as photography goes, they're still quite a nuisance. I have neighbors on both sides of me that have Luxor lights.
Yeah, I think you mean the warmer temperatures are
the warmer
easier.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
It is confusing.
Yeah.
It's hard
It is.
to keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would think that the warmer colors would be the cooler temperatures, but it's not. It's kind of like backwards.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to say thanks again for the presentation. It's great info.
Thanks so much, Greg, and thanks for talking about this. I'll just put this on my screen because it was just a really quick Google. But the good news is that LED lights are starting to become warmer and warmer. So you can have, like, if you Google amber LED lighting or, a warmer color, and I didn't talk a lot about spectrum, but what Greg is talking about is, it's hard to, I can pull it up maybe and discuss it a little bit, but lights used to just be in a narrow band of and now the lighting covers the full spectrum, so from blue to red, and it's a full mix of lights instead of just a narrow band of orange or yellow, and it's the best way I can explain it quickly. But light is moving to a warmer color. Whenever the LED technology first arrived on the scene, LED lights were in like phones and TVs, and they were created to have really good color renditioning. So that means that the blues and the purples and the reds on your TV screen and on your phone were really, really clear. They kind of transferred that straight out of the phone to the light pole, which was not it didn't transfer as well, and it changed the color of light domes. So now we can measure that actually. Before, light domes used to be oranger and yellower. Now they're whiter and bluer. And that's made a big difference in the impact on wildlife and people and the nocturnal environment, of course. so LED technology is finally starting to catch up to the demand for warmer lights. When the American Medical Association, I think it was in 2016, came out and said, listen, lights should be under 3000 K. So many cities and communities at that point had been installing 5000 K and 4000 K lights. And so the demand for 3000 K, 3000 Kelvin CCT, so 3000 K CCT, which is 3000 Kelvin color coordinated temperature, the demand for that color temperature went up significantly, and lower color temperatures started to increase, and you started to be able to find those options on the, you started to be able to find those options. Consumers could buy those more frequently. So it's a positive direction. We're seeing lower and lower color temperatures being installed. The negative part about that is there's no way that you could change some of the lights that people and municipalities and communities have already spent a lot of money on. One thing that they can do to retrofit some of those lights right now is decrease the brightness, because the thing about blue light is it appears brighter to our eye. So a light that's 100 lumens that's much bluer in content than a light that's 100 lumens that's much oranger in content will appear much brighter to us. So we can dim that light, dim that blue light with dimmers that you can install on street lighting to reduce the amount of brightness that will, of course, be more protective of night sky environments. So that's a way that you can reduce, a municipality or city can reduce their impact. Also decrease the amount of glare that is uncomfortable for people in the community as well. Yeah. I could talk about lighting all day long. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a collective effort. It's something that we can get involved with on a grassroots level, but it's going to have to go forward to cities and communities also getting on board. So going back to the chat comment from Michelle, she was trying to do a screen capture of the slides on light pollution. Will you have any of this information available? Can you make your presentation or certain slides available at a later point in time?
Yeah, I'd be happy to send information to anyone, but Shellen, I think it's going to be on YouTube too.
Yes, this will be on YouTube tomorrow, and I'll make a post on Facebook and Twitter once I get that up. But yes, it will be on YouTube. Everything is being recorded currently as well as broadcasted to Facebook. So if you have Facebook, you can watch it now. Then from there, it downloads once I hit stop, and then I usually get it uploaded to YouTube in the morning. So you'll have access. No problem. Next question from Jenny. Is Tonopah, the city of Tonopah, involved in the BR Dark Sky group? It's great that a small town is promoting this, maybe a good model for other rural towns. So is Tonopah involved?
No, I haven't talked to, well, I have, there's, so the cooperative is a cooperative in the true sense. I coordinate it, but a lot of the members work with each other, and I don't need to be involved in all of those conversations, and I'm often not, because I would be stretched incredibly thin if I was. So there are folks that work with the city of Tonopah. There's a group looking at creating a path from Death Valley to Great Basin. It's going to be called Park to Park in the Dark. So they're considering creating this highway that you travel from one to another, and they're working with the city of Tonopah. That group is, yeah. Okay. It's the best way to have a cooperative, is to have everybody in agreement that we care about night skies, want to work together, and have everybody kind of going forth and doing the good work. Yeah. I can indoctrinate all of you into the cooperative right now, so you can all do the good work.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Just quick. Isn't the town of Baker working on a night sky certification?
They are, yes. Yeah, they're currently working on that certification. And for anyone who's interested, what certification means is that, you will have night sky friendly lights. You will, have a lighting ordinance to keep those night sky friendly lights in as a part of the community, so that when community changes over, or city councils or people change over, that ordinance still stays. They do outreach events to talk about the importance of the night sky. So these are all things that are important for getting certified as a night sky community. But it's also important, if you don't have the ability to do all of those things. I mean, the most important thing you can do is just use night sky friendly lighting. And if you do that, and if you get those changes in your community, then you can see improvements for your neighbors. It's great.
Yeah, start where you're at.
Yeah, start where you're at. Kurt, was there anything else you wanted to say about Baker?
I don't know a whole lot about that, but I did want to kind of chime in there with the LED lighting, because one of the things that frustrates me is there's just been a huge escalation in producing, 100-watt plus equivalent bulbs, and to go out there and try to find like a 25-watt equivalent LED bulb doesn't really exist. So
it's harder.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting that because of the blue light that they were able to add to the formula to make the broad spectrum, they decided, oh, well, we can make these lights super bright too. Let's do both. Instead of saying, oh, we can reduce the amount of light that we need by having.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, Kirk. I think, people, LED lights are more energy efficient, so they're less expensive for municipalities. And the hope was that they would also, that more cheaper light wouldn't mean more light, but it seems like some communities that aren't educated on the topic seem to say, oh, light is cheaper now, let's just add a whole bunch more to the environment, which you can continue to move in a positive direction when you reduce the cost of lights, and also reduce the amount of light that you spill into the environment, because it's not just about energy savings, it's also about saving your environment and making the community that you work with or live in a better place to be.
And Michelle made a comment about the blue lights. She said that's what disrupts our sleep patterns, and that's a problem for human health. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, so there's a lot of evidence that shows that we have these things in our eyes. So there's cones and rods. So at nighttime, we know that red light is better for our dark adaptation, but we have these other things in our eyes called ganglion receptors, and they're not really impacted by light in the same way that our cones and rods are. And when those receptors receive blue light, it disrupts our circadian rhythm. It disrupts our ability to create melatonin, which we need at night to feel rested. And so blue light, the more blue light, especially at nighttime, which is the time when we have the most blue light, so looking at your phones, if you have, a smartphone today, they have something called night shift mode. And that night shift mode is so that it can decrease the amount of blue light in your phone, because companies know that it's negative for you. It's not, you don't have to believe me, you can believe Apple and Samsung that we are starting to understand and know that there are negative impacts. And also the American Medical Association came out with that too. There was some research, I think like 2 years ago, oh man, I'm blanking on the name of the award that scientists get. not Pulitzer Prize is for literature, and
You know?
the Nobel Prize. Thank you. I can't believe I forgot that. Just totally blanked in front of everyone. But somebody got the Nobel Prize for circadian rhythm research recently and talked about blue light too. So we're just starting to understand the impacts of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I noticed the questions are slowed down.
Okay.
We can go ahead and kind of shut this down, get the blue light out of everyone's face. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Greg, is your hand back up, or has it been up?
Yeah, actually, I just raised it because I just wanted to let
Yeah.
Ashley know. For Christmas, this was my Christmas present. And I
Oh,
don't
the
know if you can tell.
SQM.
Yes, yeah. And so every time I go out to various locations to do my astrophotography, I always take readings of the locations that I'm at. I don't know if that data is of any help or any use to you, but if it is, I've got an Excel spreadsheet of my locations.
Kirk, they collect SQM data, so Kirk might be interested in that too.
Okay.
Right. We're working at putting together a data form, also spreadsheet, and even like an ODK app for a tablet or a phone that you just plug it in, and it should put it in a data form to be compatible for IDA use as well.
Yeah. There's an app right now, Loss of Night, but it
Globe at Night.
Loss of Night. Well, for Android, that's what it's called.
Okay.
But it's very finicky, and sometimes it doesn't upload the data. And I actually messaged the developer, and they said they don't have the money to fix it. It's like it was made for like a very old Android version.
You should look at Globe at Night. That's another one.
I will. I'll definitely look into it.
Yeah, we can continue that conversation because Kirk uses data. Definitely like to link up with you later.
Okay.
All right. So Ashley,
Kurt, I'm sorry. Kurt, I'll DM you my email address if you want to reach out to me.
Okay.
Thank you. So yes, thank you, Ashley, for coming to speak with us. I'm wearing my Friends of Nevada Wilderness Dark Sky hoodie. Wanted to point that out. We wanted to show our appreciation for Nevada's dark skies. So we recreated our logo using some dark sky images. So you can check that out on our website, nevadawilderness.org. Thank you, Kurt, for adding your piece about the work that we did out in Massacre Rim and the work we continue to do to protect dark skies in Nevada. So thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your night and enjoy your weekend. See you guys.
Bye.